There have been many extremely poor trades throughout sports history. This can affect teams for years and leave them in shambles season after season. Teams like the Brooklyn Nets and 76ers have failed many, many times and have led to some of the worst seasons in sports history. Teams must be very cautious and think about all of the options before making a trade so that it doesn't cost them in the long run. A good front office can make a huge difference between a terrible franchise and a very good franchise, even if your teammates are or your team is very good. In 2013, the Brooklyn Nets made the worst trade in NBA history and maybe even sports history by sending Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Jason Terry to the Nets in exchange for four conditional first round picks to the Celtics. Now, conditional picks mean that no matter what the record is, no matter how high or low the draft pick is, the other team gets that pick. And the difference between that and unconditional and conditional, so that's unconditional. Conditional picks would be like if they get the pick in the top 10, that other team doesn't get it. But if it's outside the top 10, then the team does get it. And they get an exchange or they get another pick if that condition isn't met. So, with this trade, they got about 2 good seasons out of these aging stars, and then they were left with no draft capital for many years. And the Celtics, they won this trade by far by getting their star players in Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. They even got part of the Kyrie Irving trade after signing Isaiah Thomas, who would go for 28.9 points per game in his last season on the Celtics. So all of this led to their latest Eastern Conference Finals. They lost to the Heat, but they made the Eastern Conference Finals because of this trade. So the next trade was the Los Angeles Lakers in 1996 when they traded with the Charlotte Hornets for Kobe Bryant. This may have been the biggest mistake in history because Kobe Bryant is an easily top 10 player of all time, and he was traded for an aging Vlade Divac. So Bleacher Report stated that Bryant was traded for the aging Vlade, and he was the greatest Laker of all time, who Kobe was. And Vlade he averaged a respectable 2.2 points per game and 8.2 rebounds per game while on the Lakers, but that is nowhere near to the 5 championships that Kobe led the Lakers to with Shaquille O'Neal. So the most recent trade on this list is when the Arizona Cardinals received DeAndre Hopkins and a 4th-round pick for David, and they gave away David Johnson and a 2nd-round pick. This is a huge deal because DeAndre Hopkins has solidified himself as the best receiver in the NFL right now. And while recording 704 yards on 3 touchdowns, and David Johnson has only had a lackluster season of 392 yards on 3 touchdowns, both through 7 games. This hasn't fully cleared up yet. We don't know what the next picks will be, but this is a very bad trade speaking about terms of talent that they traded away. They traded away one of the best receivers that has played the game of football. And also, the Cardinals are 5-2 with DeAndre Hopkins, and the Texans are only 1-6, which is something to be desired. The last trade that I will be covering was in the 2017 NBA draft, when the Boston Celtics traded the number 1 overall pick for the number 3 overall pick and other draft capital. And they basically traded Jason Tatum for Markelle Fultz. Markelle Fultz was the number 1 pick, and he turned out to be a huge bust. He lasted only a few seasons. He's out of the 76ers organization now. He's in Orlando, and Jason Tatum is blossoming into a superstar right now, averaging mid-20 points per game last season. What's crazy about this trade is Danny Ainge, who is the Celtics GM, actually convinced the 76ers to trade the number for the number one pick because Danny said that he was super high on Markelle Fultz when he really wasn't. He wanted Jason Tatum the whole time, and Markelle Fultz might be one of the biggest busts in NBA history. So obviously many mistakes have been made throughout these franchises, but with every winner there is a loser, and these are a lot of the losers. But on the other side, there's a lot of the winners. But as Joel Embiid would say, you got to trust the process. Eventually, those teams will get better as long as they don't keep making the same mistakes that they have made. Teams like the Boston Celtics and Los Angeles Lakers have amazing front offices, and they will go down as the best franchises in history because they are smart, outweigh the options, and they don't make dumb trades. And they are unlike the Hornets, who have just, they don't manage their team well, they don't make good trades. But yeah, those are some of the worst trades in NBA history.